Welcome everyone to Class 3, Astrodynes. Tonight's class is on the zodiac, or the signs of the zodiac. And again, like last week, this is a class on fast-tracking delineation. We're not actually going into really detailed, laborious delineations. We're not going into really detailed delineations per chart, but what I'm hoping happens through the course of this 6 weeks is as we focus on each function, planets, houses, signs, aspects, elements, etc., that you're developing a skill which you can then apply to being a really detailed analysis of any chart. But I'm going to keep us focused on the element that we're studying, which is the dominant sign tonight. So, what is the zodiac? And the zodiac is a band of stars that falls approximately 9 degrees on either side of the ecliptic, which is seen here. This is the celestial equator, which is the Earth's equator extended out into space. The ecliptic is the apparent path that the sun and other planets trace out in the sky during the year as they appear to move in the sky in relation to the stars. Now, here we are. And so you can tell when we're looking towards both the celestial equator and the ecliptic, we're looking south. That should help explain again, after what we looked at last week, why the map we look at is held upside down. Why are we looking south? So this is what it looks like. You've got this band extending out from the ecliptic that is evenly divided. However, there are two popular zodiacs in use, depending on your culture, background, training. Right? There's actually more zodiacs than that, but primarily among practicing astrologers, there's the tropical and the sidereal zodiac, which we'll talk about briefly tonight. Now, zodiac is derived from the Latin zodiacus, which in turn is derived from the Greek zodiakos, which means band of animal. If you look at the zodiac here, they're not pictured but named. We have a ram, a bull, twin male humans, a crab, a lion, a female human, a set of scales, a scorpion, a centaur, you'll find that in your local zoo, a sea goat, a man, and twin fish. So, with the exception of the scales, they all, welcome Ruben, find a seat, they all represent animals. So you can see the word zoo in zodiac, which actually comes from the Greek zoe, for life. Now, what happened was the ancients observed that persons born during certain 30-day periods of the year held similar traits in common. And then they chose a symbol from their natural world, and they projected it against the backdrop of the starry night sky. In this case, since the astrology that we follow comes from the Near East, which is also where the domestication of animals began, at least of the larger animals. We know that all over the world, dogs were domesticated first, but in terms of sheep, goats, cattle, horses, this mostly came out of the steppes of Central Asia and in the Near East. So the zodiac that we work with is primarily based on those animals. And these were also the animals, if you think about it, from that homeland that had been exported around the world. We don't raise, well, although one might say that there is a movement towards raising bison, which is the cattle species of the New World. The cattle that we raised were brought in from the Old World. The same with goats and sheep. So these have all traveled. Horses too. The horse that was native to the New World, which went extinct about 10,000 years ago, was tiny, about the size of a modern-day dog. So here they noticed that persons born during the first 30 days from spring were precocial in nature. They could act out, so to speak. They were independent. They, like the male of the sheep species, were leaders. They projected that into the heavens against the stars that were there at that time. What's happened over the millennium is the stars have shifted, and we'll talk about that. If you were born in the 30 days following the summer solstice, when the sun starts to move backwards in the sky, it was related to the crab, which is the animal that cannot walk straight forward, but it walks sideways, just like the sun sidesteps in the heavens. So that was projected against the backdrop in the skies, against those star patterns. The same thing if we look to the winter solstice, where the sun is furthest south. We're at the top of the chart, basically, because we're looking at a southern-oriented map. The goat was pictured in the heavens to represent the climbing ambition of those born during those 30 days after the winter solstice. So this is how the zodiac was born. Now, we've briefly touched already upon solstices and equinoxes. And basically, we just celebrated the equinox last weekend, last Saturday. And this is equal night, comes from the Latin. There are 2 days each year, in September and in March, where the sun, in its apparent motion, it's actually due to the fact that the Earth, as it revolves around the sun, tilts. But there are those 2 days when the sun's rays are direct upon the equator, and those are the equinoxes. The length of the day and night is equal. The word solstice comes from the Latin sol sistere, which means the sun stands still. And the summer solstice takes place around June 20th. This is when the sun is 23 degrees, 44 minutes north of the equator, when it is sitting on the Tropic of Cancer, the furthest point north. And the winter solstice takes place approximately December 21st, when the sun is equidistant, 2344 south, or sitting on top of the Tropic of Capricorn, which we've just discussed and showed the images for.
So it looks like the Tropic of Cancer is much further toward the top of the globe than the Tropic of Capricorn.
And that may just be an inaccuracy in the diagram. They actually...
They're showing the tilt of the Earth.
Right, it's tilted, which is what makes it look that way. And again, these are straight lines, rather than if the lines were tilted going out from the Earth's. Here's the real Earth's equator. If you look here, rather than here, this is the Earth's equator. And the Tropic of Cancer is equidistant to the Tropic of Capricorn.
I see.
If you look at these lines, you'll see it's equidistant. If you look here, it'll make you really confused.
Yeah, the bottom map reverses it in that same distorted way.
Right. But they were the best images I could find.
Oh yeah, they're great.
So, this takes us to the term tropical zodiac. We've just discussed the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. And so the tropical zodiac basically marks the entrance of the sun into what are called the cardinal or movable signs. When we talk about the cardinal points, we are basically looking at north, south, east, west, or we're looking at the solstices and the equinoxes. So, the tropical zodiac is basically the sun enters Aries around March 20th, Cancer around June 20th, Libra around June 23rd, and Capricorn around December 21st. So we measure all of the signs, basically, from those points, moving forward in 30-degree increments. Now, this takes us into talking about the sidereal zodiac. And this is complicated business. Nevertheless, keep in mind that what the ancients did about 2,500 years ago, they actually started doing it earlier than that, is they projected these images out onto the starry clumps or clusters in the heavens. They are of different sizes. Virgo, 40 degrees in length along the zodiac. Cancer, maybe 23 degrees in length along the ecliptic. So they're different sizes. They're not equal in size, these constellations. Now, what happens is, most of you in this room are old enough to have spun a top as a child. This was before video games. And what happens with that top after a while? It starts to wobble. And the same thing is going on with this spinning top that we live on called the Earth. It starts to wobble. And so the axis changes and wobbles, and this causes the equinox to move backwards through the zodiac at a rate of 1 degree every 72 years. And that was only discovered about 2,500 years ago in Egypt by 2 astronomers. Now, why would it be so hard to discover that?
Because they die off.
Yeah, who lived over 72 years back then? You know, observation in a single human lifetime was not enough. And so Hipparchus wrote about this. And finally, there were a couple of Egyptians whose names, being Egyptian, fail me at the moment. Nevertheless, they looked at older charts and then discovered that movement. So, what this amounts to is 1 degree every 72 years is equal to 1 sign of the zodiac every 20 150 years. These are referred to as the astrological late ages, and probably the one you've heard about is the age of Aquarius, in case anybody wants to break into song. No? No takers? All right.
I'm just wondering if a chance in the axis is what's going to happen on 12/21/12.
We'll hopefully live long enough to find out.
It says chance in the axis of the.
A chance? Oh. Yeah, this should actually be a G and not a C, but I like a chance in the axis. See, you're excellent editor.
We have to brace ourselves.
Yes. So, the larger cycle is 25,765 years, which is the amount of time it takes for the equinox to pass backwards through all 12 signs. And this gives rise to all of the astrological ages. So, the sidereal zodiac links the signs of the zodiac to the positions of the constellations. There is one problem, though, is the constellations themselves, as I've already described, are of different length. Now, we discussed 2 weeks ago that the planets are the musical tones. They are a particular vibration, much like sound is a vibration or color is a vibration. The signs of the zodiac are the sounding boards. So, depending on whether this is played on a flute, violin, French horn, and what's that, a viol? Depending on the instrument, oh, that's a cello, the upright, it sounds differently. So the planets have different qualities that express as they pass through each of the 12 signs of the zodiac. When we are looking at the zodiac, it's as though we've cut an orange in half around its center. And these are the segments. Each of the signs forms one of 12 segments. What we have done with an astrological chart is we've basically flattened out a three-dimensional image into a two-dimensional image. So let's start talking about the signs. What we're going to look at tonight is, what are people like that have any one sign dominant? Something to keep in mind is your sun sign may or may not be your dominant sign. The dominant sign, what goes to making that powerful are either the number of planets which fall in that sign. We're going to see that in most of the charts we look at tonight. Or there may not only be a number of planets in that sign, the ruler of that sign could be strongly aspected and thereby drawing energy back to that sign. Or there may be fewer planets in one sign, but they're receiving more aspects than the planets where there may be 4 planets in one sign, 3 in another. The sign with 3 planets might actually be stronger due to the nature of the aspects received by those planets. So those are the things we're going to take into consideration. The thing I would like you to think about, we've talked about planets as being tones and planets being essential to temperament, because the prominent planets in one's chart give rise to the most specialized urges within that individual. These are their desire energies that are seeking expression. I like to look at the signs as being more environments to which we are drawn, activities to which we are drawn. And so we're going to look at the signs from that perspective. I've given you a truckload of keywords for each of them, so we may not necessarily go through each and every keyword tonight, but you have those as your reference. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, pictured by the ram. The symbol for Aries is the head of the ram. Remember, we're using a type of hieroglyphic or cuneiform writing. Takes less time to write that than it does to write that.
Shorthand.
Think of Sagittarius. Which would you rather write? So it's shorthand, yes. The sun sign dates are approximately March 20th to April 19th. The key word for Aries is I am. What does that make you think about Aries individuals?
Self-expression?
Self-expression.
Self-centered.
Self-centered?
Self-absorbed. And
Assertive.
I'm going to have to put the air on because I'm
Yeah,
starting
I
to
can do
cook.
that for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Assertive.
Self-assertive.
Adventurous.
Initiating.
So the best quality associated with the ram is leadership. Think of the male of the sheep species. They basically lead the flock. And they will fight, sometimes to the death. I found a picture once of the desiccated skeletons of two rams who, in their budding, had locked horns. They were left to starve to death because neither of them could move or eat afterwards. So they're toughly competitive. In this case, they are competitive for the right to mate. So leadership would be that best quality. Now here's one of Zane's big words. Officiousness. What does it mean to be officious? We can hear the word official in there.
To direct.
Bossy would be a good.
Bossy,
Yeah, officiousness is bossiness.
Yeah.
So Aries people in their worst quality can want to tell you what to do. Yet by the same token, in their best quality, they can tell you what to do. I think the difference is in the intonation.
Yeah. That's another big word.
So, the ruling planet of Aries is Mars. We think of Mars as, in fact, Aries gets its name from Mars. Mars in Greek was Ares, and Mars was the god of war. So Mars brings this combative and competitive quality to the sign, to this somewhat self-assured and self-absorbed sign. Zane gives the color as light red, being the day sign for the planet Mars. Scorpio is the night sign, so it's a darker red. The gemstone is the amethyst. And we look at this as the body from the head down to the toes. So Aries, being the first sign, starts with the head.
I thought garnet or a redstone. I thought amethyst was for Pisces.
It depends on the system. You'll find every system has different rulers. So depending on what system you learn first, you'll probably go with those gem rulerships. There are also different rulers according to the months, which are used by jewelers. And those are basically the zodiac, but since they are not following zodiac months, they've shifted them back to the month system, the calendar system. So there's a lot of different rulerships out there.
So since Aries starts in March, you'd get the end of the Pisces amethyst month ascribed to Aries, perhaps.
Yeah, well, or Aries amethyst may be ascribed to Pisces. It's different in this system, so all you can do is sort of tuck it into your thinking cap.
So this
Do the
is
comparisons.
Zane's description?
Yes, and I'm not sure what the original source on that was, but it is saying there are other authors that use some of the same.
Okay.
I think possibly Culpeper, Paracelsus, there are other,
It's in the
Older.
Tarot book, right?
yeah, the rulerships can be found in Course 6. But again, when you study the zodiac and you study different systems of astrology, you will find that the stone rulership is assigned differently among different systems, and even amongst Indian astrology, there will be some similarities and some differences. The same with the colors. Different colors are assigned by different astrologers,
And probably the notes.
and probably the notes, if others even assign those.
What note is for Aries?
I believe it's high C, but I could be wrong. You can find all of that in the Sacred Tarot. So, we'll just look at a few of these qualities here. Some of the positive traits of Aries, and I've grouped these words alphabetically, not necessarily by traits. So positive Aries traits are being active, administrative, animated, assertive, audacious, authoritative, bold, brave, chivalrous, commanding, competitive, confident, constructive, courageous, dynamic, eager, energetic, enthusiastic, exciting, executive, fearless, fierce, gallant, groundbreaking, heroic, initiating, innovative, intense, intrepid, lively, managerial, passionate, pioneering, productive, resilient, robust, spirited, strong, supervisory, valorous, and vigorous. Some of you may agree with my listings or not. Some of you may think, well, that's not a positive trait. Or when we get to what I consider negative traits, you might disagree with that. These are just one person's vocabulary. The important thing of learning vocabulary is it gives you a fuller picture of a sign. And any reading, an astrological reader is only as good as their vocabulary. Basically, you can either communicate to the client or you can't. And the greater and the more specific the language you have to work with, the greater the understanding that the client will have about themselves and their chart. So, let's talk about what would be considered negative traits by some. Accident-prone, aggressive, angry, antagonistic, argumentative, arrogant, authoritarian, bellicose, belligerent, bossy, brash, brutal, combative, competitive, destructive, dictatorial, domineering, egotistical, feverish, harmful, harsh, hasty, hostile, impatient, impetuous, impulsive, intimidating, intolerant, narcissistic, officious, overbearing, rage, rash, reckless, self-centered, tempestuous, uncompromising, and violent are all qualities. And you might say, well, argumentative, isn't that the trait for Aquarius? Or there's other things. There are traits that cross through different signs. So one vocabulary word may be able to describe more than one quality of a sign. Yes?
Would, for instance, if you have Aries ruling planet in a sign, would that carry over to that sign? Some of these traits of Aries?
Yes, if Mars falling in a sign can take some of these traits in terms of impetuousness and harshness and impulsiveness into that sign. If you have Mars in Aquarius, for example, you could be especially argumentative. You could excel in that area. So we all have different talents, and we're here to learn about them. So I'm just throwing vocabulary at you because we're going to pull out some of these words when we look at people. Here's someone who is dominant Aries, Marlon Brando. And here's a great Aries quotation. An actor's a guy who, if you ain't talking about him, he ain't listening. How's that for an Aries quote?
Yeah.
So let's look at this. We have the moon and the sun conjunct in Aries. They're just 1 degree apart, 1 degree in 5 minutes. And we have Mercury in Aries. So we certainly know if we look, could we see that Marlon Brando was typecast?
It's the contender.
Ah,
He's the contender.
yeah.
Great actor.
He was a great actor. And what traits did he express through his acting?
Dominating.
I think he was expressing himself
Yeah.
in a lot of this. If
You
you think of
mentioned
the,
how sexy Aries can be.
well, certainly, you
Yeah.
know,
He did
this
that.
one was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But any sign can be sexy.
But I once learned that one ram can service 350 ewes.
Well, that's almost 1 a day for a year.
Yeah.
You know, 2 weeks on.
Yeah, you don't need very many males in the flock when you're dealing with.
And that is why they fight and they
Yeah.
compete for the privilege of being able to pass on their DNA. One of the freaky things about life
It is.
is just that life so wants to continue living that it pushes to pass on its DNA. And not everyone gets the privilege. So, pull out some of the keywords to describe Marlon Brando, or do any of you know pieces of his life?
Bold,
Bold.
brave.
And he left Nebraska and went to New York.
Right. Chivalrous, I think. Antagonistic.
He was pretty self-centered, wasn't he?
Arrogant.
I mean, it seems to me, how many, wasn't he married many times? And,
I think 3 times.
oh, is that right? And,
I imagine there were several U's in there somewhere.
Belligerent.
Yeah, certainly those characters.
Self-indulgent? That's
boy,
not
that,
on the
I bet
list,
that
but-
would be, yeah, that's my
But that
perception.
could be a sort of afflicted Aries trait, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Overindulgence of.
Though in this case, it could also be
Jupiter,
Jupiter in the first
yeah.
house, could, you know,
Yeah,
because he tended towards corpulence and,
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
referring to.
but also the Jupiter in the Sag rising gave those qualities. I think of the one back in the 70s, early 70s, he, I think, received an Academy Award for The Godfather, and since, I forget who it was, Linda Littlefeather, or
yeah.
a Native American, I believe, Lakota, to turn down the award and to speak out. It was one of the first political statements that ever happened at the Oscars.
And his objection was?
That Native American people were being suppressed in this nation 100 and 200 years after.
By the film industry specifically?
No, I don't think it was that. I think it was due to the...
Because they were typecast, they were typecasting the Indians as bad as they did the blacks.
Right, he wasn't protesting against that.
I see. So he did take up some causes.
He took up some causes.
That would be the Sag influence.
Right.
Well, pioneering.
Yeah.
I think he was pioneering.
And I think he spent a lot of time in his home, both in Hollywood and in Tahiti. So, let's look at this. The way this looks on an Astrodyne report is if you sort by power, it's going to be the largest number. Percentage-wise for Marlon Brando, it's 22.7% of his energy. Gemini is the weakest at 1.5. So Gemini, if we think of versatility as being something that's missing, if we looked at most Marlon Brando roles, there's a good chance he was playing himself. Let's talk about Taurus. The bull. The symbol you can see is the head of the bull, the shorthand or hieroglyphic. The sun goes through Taurus approximately April 20th to May 20th. The key word for Taurus is I have. So it implies possessiveness or acquisitiveness. We consider the best quality of this to be stability. Taurus is an earth sign, and it is fixed earth. We'll talk about all of these towards the last class. I think in the 5th class, we'll go into the details of fire, earth, air, water, and movable, mutable, fixed. The worst quality, however, is obstinacy. What does obstinacy imply?
Stubbornness.
Stubbornness, which basically means you're not moving. And what does stability imply?
You're not moving.
You're not moving. So it's all in the intonation. It's basically how you say it. But that can be the best quality or the worst quality.
Well, you can be moving and still be stable.
True.
A boat.
If you're not falling down.
Well, no, seriously, there is a difference.
The ruling planet of Taurus is Venus. The color is dark yellow since it is the night sign of Venus. The day sign is Libra, which is light yellow. The agate is considered to be the gemstone, especially the moss agate. And the part of the body comes after the head. It's the neck and throat and the occipital region of the brain, where we have most of our automatic functions. Think of it. Taurus plows, it's the beast of burden. It plows the fields. It's automatic responses. So, if we were to talk about this in terms of positive traits, certain qualities in alphabetical order might be aesthetic, affectionate, artistic, consistent, constant, conventional, dependable, determined, disciplined, down to earth. Established, firm, friendly, gracious, industrious, melodic, musical, patient, persevering, pleasant, practical, pragmatic, realistic, regular, reliable, resolute, sensible, sensual, single-minded, sociable, stable, staunch, steady, tactile, unswerving, unfailing, and warm are all traits that can describe the Taurus personality. As can adamant, brooding, bullheaded, conformist, conservative, habitual, immovable, inflexible, intractable, materialistic, plotting, possessive, predictive, obdurate, one of my favorite words, obstinate, reserved, rigid, routine, slow, stiff, stubborn, sullen, unbending, unforgiving, uncompromising, and unyielding.
One thing not mentioned here is that mid-spring is when seeds are being planted, and isn't Taurus known as the generative sign?
Yes, fecundity is attributed to that, because also the moon is exalted in the sign of Taurus. So any words you can come up with, add to your list so that you can expand your vocabulary. And here's a case. I've used the word conservative as a negative trait. Well, that's no doubt a particular personal bias. There are going to be other people watching online or listening to this at a later date, or even close friends of mine that might think that should be up to the other list. So it's all in your personal vision, how you interpret things.
What does obdurate mean?
Obdurate generally means somebody who is stubborn and rigid and unyielding.
So the same as obstinate.
It's similar to obstinate.
Dur implies it has duration, right?
So really obstinate over a long period of time is obdurate. They are rigid and unchanging. All right, I don't know if he was obdurate, but I'm sure other of these traits would apply to Liberace. How's this for I have? Don't wear one ring, wear 5 or 6. People ask me, how can I play with all those rings? And I reply, very well, thank you.
He was some kind of person like that.
Yeah.
He was neat.
So, let's look at it. Taurus, 24.1. If we look at the chart, he's got Mercury, Mars, and the Sun, all in Taurus. So, and again, much like Brando, look, it's in an angular house. It's in the 4th house. Have you ever seen pictures of Liberace's homes in Las Vegas?
Yeah.
He had a pool shaped like a piano.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
In fact, there was a museum open there with all of, before he did that gig, he was a decorator. He had a store in Hollywood and sold antiques and decorator items. If you think of it, Taurus is the I have. These are collections. These are aesthetic or beautiful things. To some of us, it might seem excessive. To others, there is no success like excess. So,
But his home was really important for him too, so he made it his palace.
right.
That was his yeah. So
Drenching with opulence.
Well described.
He was one of the first openly, well, I don't know how openly, but obviously gay entertainers after his
Right, not open.
no,
In fact,
It doesn't seem
prior
like
to his death, he was being sued by a longtime partner,
right.
and he was continuing to deny,
You're
His
kidding.
relationship.
flashing the rings and saying, I'm not gay, my boyfriend is.
But he was really, his overt gayness, whether or not he verbally admitted to it, was opening up the world with somebody who had the guts to flash that image, right?
Yeah, when I was a child, it was him and Little Richard.
Yeah.
They were both
And they were both on TV.
right.
We're going to power along because we've got 12 of these, 10 left, and not a lot of time. All right, Gemini, the twins. This is the 3rd sign of the zodiac. And you can see the shorthand for this looks like the Roman numeral 2. 2 minutes in 1. All right, the sun passes through Gemini May 21st through June 19th. The key word is I think. So Geminis are an intellectual sign. Their best quality is their versatility. If you think about it, what do twins imply? Duality. And that duality can be best expressed through versatility, which is the ability to do more than one thing. Multitaskers. The worst quality, though, is being changeable. What's the difference between being changeable and versatile? Well, with one, other people like you.
Changeable like fickle.
Fickle, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that may be one of the words on the list.
Was it
So-
Zhang who said that Geminis are a jack of all trades and a master of none? Was that Zhang that said that, or,
I'm sure that's in there somewhere.
yeah? I mean, they can
And-
do many things, but they tend to not want to stick to
To any one of
any
them.
one of them, yeah. Bore easily, I think.
Also, flighty is another, I haven't been looking at the, yeah, they're fly-by-night you have on there. But that can be another changeable. I've also heard that Gemini criticized for kind of staying on the surface, not being willing to go deep.
Yeah, you don't have to bury them 6 feet when they die. Because they're not very deep.
You're caught up in your own logic.
Yeah, that's part of it is the fact that Mercury rules them. They are driven by their intellect, by their logic, by their perceptions, and by wanting to express what they think. I always thought that Gemini should be I speak rather than...
Associative thinking, though, they come up with puns so well because they put together thoughts that other people don't. It doesn't occur to them, at least as quickly as it occurs to the Gemini.
Right. They are moving faster. And the strike stones, tiger eye, are associated with Gemini, but also the beryls, aquamarine. And Gemini rules the arms and hands, which are how we have our dexterity, our ability to be tool-wielding primates. And the bronchia and upper lungs are the area of the body governed by Gemini. So, let's think of some positive qualities for Gemini. Agile, alert, articulate, astute, attentive, aware, chatty, clever, coherent, communicative, conscientious, curious, erudite, expressive, informative, ingenious, inquisitive, insightful, intelligent, knowledgeable, lively, logical, lucid, mental, multi-purpose, multi-talented, nimble, observant, perceptive. Did I use that already? Quick, rational, reasonable, smart, talkative, thoughtful, verbal, versatile, vigilant, and witty. Again, any of you can embellish upon these lists. You can add your own vocabulary to this, and should. Now, on the other hand, the negative traits that can be associated with Gemini are being anxious, apprehensive, calculating, canny, crafty, changeable, cunning, deceptive, devious, discontented, edgy, erratic, fanatical, fickle, fidgety, fly-by-night, and as Laura added, flighty, high-strung, indecisive, intrusive, jumpy, long-winded, loquacious, meddlesome, nervous, nosy, overwrought, preoccupied, prying, and rambling. These qualities are very similar, if you think about it, to an afflicted Mercury. All right. Those of you who are online, you'll have to download the errata page for tonight's class because the chart had a mind of its own and it printed out, even though on my screen it showed up as a chart, it printed as an aspect table for David Berkowitz, who's also known as the son of Sam. Look at all that Gemini. Jupiter, Sun, Mercury, and Mars. All in, they are intercepted, and they are all in the 8th house of death. But with the Sun conjunct Jupiter, I didn't want to hurt them. I only wanted to kill them.
Very scary.
A true philanthropist. So,
So, is that a true, what's the word, not sociopath, but psychopath?
That is truly warped.
yeah. Again, psychopaths generally not being able to experience empathy. How something would make another person feel. There's that emotional connection that most of us as living creatures have towards one another.
Well, he's got that Aquarian moon, which makes him, it's easy for him to be detached and objectified, right? And
Let's look at it in a larger format. Let me move along here.
That's trying his Jupiter.
yeah,
Well, he got away
And
with it
you
for
know
a
what?
long time, didn't he?
yeah, I did.
But that is expressing, and do you know how that's expressing now? Is that he wants to write a book, and he wants the proceeds from that book to go help the victims of crimes.
Really?
Yes.
But aren't all the planets expressed through the moon? Like, it's like a bucket pattern?
Well, he kind of has almost a grand trine in air.
Mm-hmm, right.
Oops. Here, it's easier to see in this larger chart. So, the moon is out of orb because it's 17 degrees apart, 18 degrees apart
Yeah.
from these planets in Libra. But there are trines from Saturn and Neptune to Mercury and Mars in his chart. And then the moon here is forming a trine to the Sun and a trine to Jupiter.
Is he life imprisoned?
Yes.
And couldn't the Saturn,
I think he's tried to get paroled unsuccessfully.
couldn't the Saturn and Neptune in the 12th house there make him, it was easy for him to be a little bit delusional about what he was doing actually?
Say that again, Michelle? Were you noticing?
Well,
The Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the 12th?
I mean, what's deluded about hearing the neighbor's dog tell you to go kill people?
Yeah, okay, that's kind of what's,
I mean,
it's all there.
it's all there.
Okay, next.
But also, I like to use this chart because I've had students ask if you can look at a chart and tell it's a mass murderer. I cannot. No. And if we were to look at this chart from the perspective of Astrodynes, all the chart shows you is what is the potential in the person, their spiritual DNA. It does not tell you to what purpose they have set their will, nor does it necessarily tell you what life experiences they've had since being born that have shaped them in some ways. And if one looks at his early life experiences, there were, a certain amount of things that were disturbing and may have molded or shaped this. He was a relatively young man when he was doing his, what do you call it when you kill more than serial.
Serial. Yeah.
But look at the harmony here.
Oh, yeah, easy.
I mean, Gemini is
Wow.
the best sign in this chart.
Well, he looks like a happy little boy.
The whole chart is more harmonious than discordant.
Yeah.
And it sounds like from that quote that you used, I don't think he really thought in terms of there being doing anything evil or bad, or well, he just wanted to kill them. He didn't really want to hurt them.
Right, and again, you know, there are certain things that you cannot tell from a chart, whether one has Asperger's or is psychopathic or has borderline personality disorder or other things. You can get some clues. There may be some signs pointing in a certain direction, but
aren't we all here for an experience? Do we have a choice?
I'd like to think that we do.
Well, yeah, I mean, but maybe I didn't say that right, but we all have to go through all the suffering, everything that exists here on this earth to become perfect, in a sense.
Yes, and you pointed something out. We all do go through suffering, some more than others, and some people handle their suffering with better attitudes than others.
Or with different outcomes, because
different
Abraham
outcomes.
Lincoln had Saturn and Neptune conjunct in his 12th house.
Yeah. So that.
But he also talked to spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, we do have choices. I know that, but the spirit comes into this world with a certain thing that they have to experience. That's how I see it. And so he might, whatever his experience in his early life were, that made him the person he ended up to be. You see?
Right, and the story isn't over yet.
No.
This may be somebody, unless he is truly psychopathic and just fooling people with talk of philanthropy in order to secure an early release from prison. It may turn out in the movie hasn't ended yet. So we don't know whether this is somebody who will make good of these lessons and start to show some of those finer traits and actually be able to spin straw into gold. The fourth sign of the zodiac is the crab, Cancer. The symbol, some say it's the claws of the crab. Zane says it represents breast.
He does?
Yeah.
I missed that part.
Ancient masonry. Must have been a breast man.
That's been a breast man.
Saw them in the sign of Cancer. So, keyword is I feel. He describes it as the breast. Cancer is the sign of nutrition. So it's both how we feed ourselves and the breast are how we feed our offspring. Only applicable generally to the female of the species because there are few lactating males.
It's a symbol.
It's a symbol, yes. So the sun moves through Cancer June 20th through July 22nd, and also in line with the claws of the crab, he says tenacity is their best trait. This is the first sign where the best trait and the worst trait are dissimilar to one another, because the worst trait is touchiness, which is a form of hypersensitivity, taking things very personally. So the crab has an exoskeletal system. The shell is on the outside, inside is tender flesh. And so Cancer persons can take things very personally. They are ruled by the moon, which impacts their moods, but also heightens their sensitivity and their intuition. The color is green, the stone, emerald, and the part of the body is both the stomach through which we nourish ourselves and the breast by which we nourish others. So let's talk about some positive Cancer traits. Being accommodating, adaptable, approachable, caregiving and caring, compassionate, considerate, domestic, emotional, fecund, feminine, fertile, flexible, fostering, gentle, intuitive, magnetic, maternal, mild, nurturing, open-minded, paternal, perceptive, persistent, protective, receptive, resolute, selfless, sensitive, sheltering, sociable, subliminal, tenacious, tender, thoughtful, and warm.
Probably masters of passive aggression. Oh, it's down here on the.
Let's look at the negative traits. Defenseless, dependent, easily influenced, fluctuating, gossipy, helpless, hypersensitive, hysterical, impressionable, inconsistent, indecisive, maudlin, moody, overly emotional, needy, passive, passive-aggressive, powerless, submissive, susceptible, temperamental, thin-skinned, touchy, unstable, vacillating, vulnerable, wavering, weak, weepy, and whiny. You don't want to put that on your eHarmony dating profile.
Covert, would you say?
Yeah, they can be covert. That can go with the passive-aggressive. It's a term
Sideways,
I use more with Scorpio, but again, the water signs have certain qualities in common. One could use that also with Pisces and the 12th house influence. So that's one of those words that can cross over into several signs. All right, Maureen Stapleton. I thought if you got to be an actress, you automatically ended up looking like that. Thin and beautiful.
Well, that's diluted.
I forgot to put that on the list. All right, let's look at it here. 32% of her power. Almost 1/3 of the chart is in Cancer. And if we go back, look at this. Sun is in Gemini and the midheaven, but you've got Mercury, Moon, Pluto, Venus, Mars, all in Cancer. Now, with that amount of planets in Cancer, and the Sun in Gemini on the day that it changes into Cancer, this could give rise for some people in believing in, oh, I'm born on the cusp. I really express more Cancer traits than I do Gemini. Well, she does. Why? When you look beyond the sun sign, you can actually see that there can, a sign other than your sun sign can be the dominant sign. When we looked at the first 3 men, Marlon Brando, Liberace, David Berkowitz, their dominant sign also happened to be their sun sign. But now we're looking at someone where there is another dominant, and this is even far more powerful than the other charts in terms of one sign dominating. Any roles you remember her in?
When she got older, she was famous in some roles. I don't remember her looking like this.
No, I think we.
She was in a TV series.
Yeah.
wasn't she?
All in the Family?
Oh,
Family.
How's that for a title for a Cancer, dominant Cancer?
That was Maureen Stapleton? Wow, and all in the Edith? This is Edith?
Edith.
Oh my
Archie!
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I would say that role that she played was pretty Cancerian.
Yeah, it was. She played the mom.
Yeah.
The mom.
Nurturer.
Kind of a little
Submissive-
whiny. She had a
submissive
whiny
Yeah.
tone. Yeah,
Yeah.
the submissive wife. Kind of naive,
Easily
kind of whiny.
dominated, yeah.
Yeah.
But she was actually a whole lot smarter than she let on. She played this this passive role,
Yeah.
but was sort of an iron fist in a velvet
Yeah.
glove.
Yeah. She was a good actress.
So we're not even halfway through. Let's look at Leo, the lion. The symbol, most astrologers consider that the tail of the lion. Zane says it's a stylized cobra because it's a phallic symbol, saying that the cobra, when it stands up, represents an erect phallus, and that because Leo is the 5th house, or the sign of lovemaking, it could be both. I'll have to ask Freud about that. The key word is I will. And the sun is here from July 23rd to August 22nd. The best quality of Leo is kindness. They're concerned about other people's feelings. They want to make sure that they got the right gift for your birthday. They're sending thank you notes for, dinners. There's a sense of manners, protocol, that they want people to go by the rules. It's something they really want. Only each of them have a different manual they're working from. So it has to be published. They have to be able to have that.
Martha Stewart was our Leo before.
Oh, yeah, Miss Manners.
Yeah.
Worst quality is domination. That's the need to be in control or be in charge. Leos don't want others to steal their thunder or steal the limelight or take credit for their ideas. The sun is the ruling planet, which is the power urges. The color is orange, the stone is the ruby, and the part of the body is the back and spine. Some say the heart, but the heart is actually ruled by the sun, the planet that governs Leo. So, what are their best qualities? Attentive, authoritative. Some might say that's not a positive trait. But it is when you need someone to be in charge. Sure comes in handy. They are chivalrous, commanding, confident, congenial, considerate, courteous, creative, dependable, dramatic, energetic, enthusiastic, generous, gracious, kind, lively, poised, polite, powerful, protective, proud, regal, reliable, respected, respectful, self-assured, self-determined, thoughtful, vigorous, vital, warm, and well-mannered. The negative traits can be arrogance, aristocratic, authoritarian, bossy, braggart, conceited, condescending, controlling, demanding, dictatorial, domineering, haughty, insecure, intrusive, micromanagers, name-dropping, officious, overbearing, overly confident, overly dramatic, patronizing, prideful, pompous, puffed up, rigid, self-important, smug, snobbish, superior, vain, vainglorious. You can see these are all a lot of the traits that might also be associated with a discordant sun in a chart.
And what's vainglorious mean?
Do you know what vanity is?
Yeah.
Vanity is a certain type of self-importance, which can be associated either with one's appearance or one's skills, talents, abilities. When one is vainglorious, they're good at PR. They're good at
Self-promotion.
self-promotion. But again, it's all in the intonation. If we say somebody's self-promoting, we'd put that on the positive list. When we say vainglorious, they're self-promoting in a way that annoys us. So, Chich Marin. This doesn't sound vainglorious, does it? Our first gig was a battle of the bands. We did 45 minutes of comedy and never played a note. And we won! All right, Leo midheaven. Here's a Cancer, but with a dominant Leo. And he is born 10 days from the cusp. So this is a Cancer who might actually identify more with Leo traits when he hears about them. Midheaven Leo, Pluto Leo, Mercury in Leo, all in an angular house, the 10th house. Does anybody know who he is?
Yeah, Cheech and Chong.
Yes, Cheech and Chong. So back in the 70s, he did a comedy routine with Tommy Chong. Up in Smoke, I forget the names of the other films. I actually never saw any of them. I know I've missed out on an important piece of cultural heritage.
They're good.
Um,
They're funny. You still sing.
I should have read
I've
them.
never seen them.
You never have?
Oh, you gotta
my
see 'em.
goodness.
Okay.
Read one time.
So what is, so does he manifest those Leo traits, you think,
Yes.
in his roles?
Yes, acting.
In his
yes,
acting,
definitely.
A lot of self-confidence.
Yeah.
But what many people don't know about Cheech is he's actually a major art collector.
Yeah.
He has one of the premier collections in the nation of Chicano art.
Yeah.
24.7 for Leo in his chart. That's almost a full fourth of his power. And it's expressing through the house of career. So this is somebody who could be very good, and he's actually had a career that has spanned decades, from the comedy routines, and I think starting out in BC, and then all of the movies. I think maybe 10 years ago he had a series that he was in with Don Johnson. Yeah. And his name is out there through his art collection at this point. One of the most prestigious art collections. So
Where's his
he's-
Venus?
It's also in the 10th
Oh,
house.
it's in the 10th house. okay.
Yeah, in Virgo, I believe. So he's a 0 degrees. He's a fastidious art collector.
Huh.
He's had an advisor who has guided him on many of his purchases. But Venus is up there and active. Virgo, the maiden or the virgin. The symbol Zane claims comes from cuneiform writing, and that it was the Babylonian symbol for a sheaf of grain, which is tied off. The key word is I analyze. So we can see Mercury, Gemini, the other Mercury sign, was I think, and now I analyze. August 23rd to September 22nd are the days that the sun passes through Virgo, the last month of summer. And the best quality of that sign is their analysis. They are able to get into complex topics, break them down, digest the information, and simplify it for others. And the worst quality is that analysis on steroids. Because Virgo goes through life with a microscope or magnifying glass, looking at everything in its details. And so, whether it's a piece of clothing, they might find the one faulty seam in the pair of jeans that they're looking at buying, or a beautiful china platter, they will find the nick in it. Or they'll pass through a neighborhood and comment on the unfortunate remodeling or landscaping that has happened. I always call Virgo the princess and the pea. And if you know that mythology, the king and queen, we're trying to identify a princess for their son. And so to test her, they invite her to spend the night. They had 20 mattresses covered with silks and brocades. And under the bottom was one dry pea. And the princess woke up bruised. And so the thing with Virgo is if there's one little thing going wrong, it can capture their attention. Mercury, the planet of perception and the intellect, governs. The color is dark violet, being the night sign of Mercury. The gemstone is jasper. And Virgo is the discerning part of the body, the intestines and bowels, which are what separate out the nutrients from our food and disperse them into the bloodstream. So, positive traits. Virgos are alert, analytical. They are articulate, astute, attentive, chatty, coherent, communicative, conscientious. They are curious, detail-minded, diagnostic, erudite, expressive, focused, occasionally hypochondriacal. How did that end up on the positive traits? Must have bumped my head that day. Let's move that one down. Informative, at least I got it in alphabetical order.
Yeah.
Ingenious, inquisitive, intelligent, investigative, judicious, knowledgeable, logical, lucid, methodical, observant, perceptive, perfectionist, rational, reasonable, scholarly, systematic, talkative, thorough, thoughtful, and verbal. Now, on the negative trait, yes, Barb.
Doug in California said he'd read in New York Observer that she's recently opened up an art gallery in New York City featuring Chicano art.
Well, that's just what Christopher was saying. That's a
Pretty much,
real
it was
confirmation.
Yeah.
All right, negative traits. They can be anxious, apprehensive, blaming, critical, disapproving, discontented, disgruntled. That's such a great word.
Yeah.
What is it to be gruntled?
Good question.
Thank you. I don't know what it means to be gruntled, but we know what it means to be disgruntled.
That's your Virgo streak coming out.
It is. I have Jupiter there. So. It seemed humorous to me. They can be disparaging, fanatical, fault-finding, fidgety, high-strung, interfering, intrusive, judgmental, jumpy, long-winded, loquacious, malcontented, meddlesome, nervous, nitpicking, obsessive, overly rational, overwrought, pedantic, purist, preoccupied, prim, procrastinating, prudish, prying, rambling, restless, straight-laced, tense, and verbose. Do we have a Virgo? Johnny Depp.
All right.
All right. I guess I'm attracted to these offbeat roles because my life has been a bit abnormal. The only thing I have a problem with is being labeled. This has nothing to do with Virgo, but talk about,
Yeah,
well, I guess it does have to do with Virgo.
it's in there.
Uranus and Mars conjunction in Virgo in the first house, and then Pluto also within orb here. So,
what do you make of that, Christopher?
well, what type of roles does he end up playing? Quirky, offbeat
Yeah.
roles.
Right.
He
Almost.
seems to pick roles he can really have fun at, too.
And
Then
there's
he
always,
must be a fun Virgo.
Yeah.
there's
Where does
always
that
a
come from?
He's
costume
got
too.
mid-Leo rising. So that Virgo's expressing in a Leo ruled.
I would say Mercury and Venus in conjunct 1 degree apart in Taurus would be somebody who wants to have fun with their career, but who personally is just such an oddball. Chances are that's not just a public image.
Right.
That's
People that know him might actually agree with that.
he plays the role of his his personality.
Right, and he always has these meticulous costumes. Even when he was Wasn't he Edward Scissorhands?
He was Edward
Yeah.
Scissorhands, the
I mean,
first
that-
major role,
Yeah,
Yeah.
or all the way up to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
but even as a pirate, he's got these very meticulous elements to his role that he plays.
Mhm.
When he played in.
Yeah.
And lately, when you did his hands, he did a role in a spook
Oh, what was that?
where the hands were really a feature.
Dark
of the
Shadows,
movie.
or
It was just recently, yeah.
Dark Shadows,
yeah,
I think it was called. It was based on an old
That old
70s or
soap opera?
60s TV series.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's worth seeing. It was
Yeah.
quite a role.
Yeah, and great costumes.
Highest paid male actor right now.
Is
Is
he?
he?
He can sure pick his roles too. And he's chosen to live abroad.
He must have good progressions. I'm not sure where that would come from the chart, other than the co-ruler of his second house conjuncts Venus in the 10th house.
Yeah, so it's got power to it.
Certainly highest paid. So, what it looks like in his chart, 22%. Little over a fifth, little under a fourth of his power. And it's very discordant. One of the things he did as a teen and into his 20s, I think, is he was a cutter.
A cutter?
Yeah, self-afflicted wounds.
Oh, really?
Where would that come from?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Uranus conjunct Mars.
And I think where that has gone on to express itself is allegedly he has a lot of tattoos. So he's gone from cutting to basically body art. And that first house is, continuing to see. If you think of tattooing, has anyone here been tattooed?
No.
I haven't. You have?
Did it hurt?
Well, yeah.
No, not really.
Really?
Yeah, I've tattooed too.
And it didn't really hurt?
No, I mean, it's less than a shot.
Huh.
So,
Wow.
I always thought it must be so painful.
Yeah, I always thought the same.
Depends on where you have them,
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Yeah, the inside of your
Yeah, right.
And from what I understand, the Irish have more pain receptors than any other
I might get another one.
ethnicity.
More pain receptors,
Yeah.
so they are hyper.
It's the all-seeing eye.
They
Oh,
feel more pain.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I did that 20 years
Thus we
ago.
thought the bottle.
Yeah.
All right. The scales. We're only halfway through, my goodness. We're going to really have to do 5 minutes
Okay.
a piece. There's the symbol, which is both a masculine line and a feminine line. It's a masculine sign because it's air, but it's ruled by a feminine planet, Venus. They're confused. All right. I balance is the key word, and the sun is there from September 23rd to October 22nd. Their best quality is affability. What does it mean to be affable?
Congenial?
Congenial, friendly, nice would be words we use to go with it. Gracious. The worst quality is approbativeness. What is approbation? The seeking of approval from others. Libras are like performing circus dogs, jumping backwards through flaming hoops to get a pat on the head. They want to make nice for everyone and everything. And did you like it? Did you like it? Venus is the ruling planet. The color is light yellow. The gemstone is the diamond and or quartz. And the part of the body is the lower back and kidney region. And I think the ovaries are also in part ruled by Libra and Scorpio. All right, let's talk about positive Libra traits, since clearly we like them. They are aesthetic, affable, affectionate, agreeable, amiable, artistic, attentive, attractive, caring, charming, chic, companionable, convivial, cordial, courteous, creative, elegant, fashionable, friendly, gracious, graceful, gracious, gregarious, hospitable, kind, loving, pleasant, poised, polite, popular, refined, sociable, stylish, tactful, tender, warm, welcoming, and well-mannered. However, they can also be acquiescent, approval-seeking, compliant, coy, dissipated, docile, fawning, flattering, flirtatious, hesitant, idle, indecisive, indolent, insecure, lacking confidence, lazy, lenient, lethargic, languid, obsequious, permissive, plastic, pliant, self-doubting, self-indulgent, slavish, submissive, sycophantic, trendy, vacillating, and yielding. Now you see when we read these two lists, we read the first one and we really like the person. We read the second one and we don't. Yeah, that is Libra.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in truth, we are all combinations of good and bad. Just spend enough time around any one of us, and
Right.
you'll rub up against both sides of the aisle. All right, here's a Libra, Helen Gurley Brown. Cosmo is feminist in that we believe women are just as smart and capable as men and can achieve anything they want. But it is also acknowledges that while work is important, men are too. The Cosmo girl absolutely loves men.
And then she encouraged women to go out and have sex with lots
With as many of them as possible. What was it? Sex and the Single Girl? Was that her first
Yeah,
bestseller?
yeah. That was
Yes.
really a sea changer in the 60s.
I think Eartha Kitt did a song, I Love Men, over and over and over again. So, 18.5% of her energy. Where's her Libra? Well, she was an Aquarius. But she had Saturn, the midheaven, and Jupiter all in Libra. And
Making aspects. Oh, it has to be, right?
yeah,
Get that power.
to Mercury and the Sun in Aquarius. So, let's see, Helen.
Saturn squares Pluto. Pretty close square.
Sun squares the Moon, conjuncts Mercury, Venus, squares Mars, Seskai squares Jupiter, conjuncts Uranus, trines Pluto. Seskai squares the midheaven. So they're not great aspects. But she just died this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But she was considered on many lists as one of the most influential women. And you could see that she was not only influential in making money, she got that magazine to make money, but she was also influential in the circles she moved in and for being sort of an opinion broker.
And defining roles. Her opinion had a lot of clout.
Yeah, love men over and over and over again.
She also stood up for women going out and making their own livings and not being dependent on men, becoming self-sufficient, so that they could love women, without being beholden to them, basically. they could love men without being, is that what I said?
No,
No,
you
you
said
said women.
I thought
Yeah.
so, I thought I
They could do lighter.
Freudian slipping.
It's a free country. Yes, your slip was showing.
Yeah.
Scorpio, the scorpion. It's the closest symbol to Virgo, which Zane said was a sheaf of grain tied up. In this, we can see the sheaf of grain has become untied, so the seed is spilling out. Keyword is I desire. Scorpio is associated with sex. It's October 23rd through November 21st. And the best quality of Scorpio is their resourcefulness. To say Scorpios are like the Yellow Pages is sort of an obsolete symbol now. They're like a search engine. People will go to their Scorpio friends to find a hairdresser, a plumber, a painter, a body worker, or a mechanic, because they are connected. They have resources at their fingertips. Their worst quality, however, is troublesomeness. Scorpios are like really big dogs, like Great Danes, that come and lean into you and then slowly shift all of their weight on you. So you have to move aside. And so what the Scorpio person does is they will push your buttons until you tell them, don't cross that line in the sand. Don't go there. But they're like a good massage therapist. Does that hurt? Does this hurt? Does this hurt?
Then let me press harder. I brought up Taurus being the generative sign. I've heard it said that Scorpio, the other sex sign of the zodiac, is the regenerative sign because it's the start of fall.
Yeah, they're like lizards. They have healing qualities. Like lizards that lose their tail, they can regrow it. Scorpios have this ability to have, because they're tied into that essence of life itself, which is both sex and regeneration, but also death. I mean, Scorpio is the sign of death because fall is also the time where the trees lose their leaves and animals go into hibernation. Pluto and Mars are the rulers. Dark red is the color. Opals and topaz are the gemstones. And the part of the body is the genitals. If any of you ever forgot that. So, some of their positive traits are the fact that they are astute, attentive, charismatic, conscientious, creative, deep, diligent. Just as Geminis, you only have to bury about a foot. Scorpios, you've got to dig 9 or 10 feet to bury them. They're very deep. Diligent, discerning, emotional, firm, healing, imaginative, ingenious, inspired, intense, intuitive, insightful, keen, magnetic, meditative, meticulous, motivated, observant, passionate, perceptive, persevering, persistent, poignant, profound, receptive, reflective, reserved, resolute, resourceful, restorative, sensitive, shrewd, therapeutic, thorough, thoughtful, vigilant, and wary. You look at those traits and you'd almost like them. Now, on the other side of the aisle, we have aggressive, annoying, bellicose, belligerent, brooding, brutal, callous, compulsive, confrontational, cruel, cutting, extremist, fanatical, forceful, goading, hurtful, inflexible, intimidating, jealous, licentious, lustful, manipulative, menacing, again the word obdurate, obsessive, proud, provocative, pushy, resistant, rigid, ruthless, secretive, severe, thin-skinned, touchy, uncompromising, unforgiving, unrelenting, unyielding, vengeful, vindictive, wasteful, and wounding.
Poker face. That's sometimes commonly a description of Scorpio.
Put that down. Yeah, they're very detective-like. Scorpios are. So you wake up in the morning, they'll start asking questions. I like this quote, since it's the sex sign. I've never had to pretend to be having sex with somebody. I'm like the queen of the foreplay dissolve. Julia Roberts. All right, you don't see her having sex in movies, even though she's played a hooker on, I think, a couple of occasions, activist. I mean, her prime role was
Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
So she's sexy in a sense without being sexual. I think there was a period where she was the highest paid female actor. Where's all that Scorpio? Oh, in the 4th house again. Now, Scorpios are secretive, aren't they?
Yes.
She is known for hanging out in her secret hideaway in Taos County. Sun, Mercury, Neptune, all in Scorpio in this chart. And they're all fairly wide from one another, which is, so the sign is powerful, but the aspects aren't that powerful. You know, the Sun-Mercury conjunction is somewhat mild, as is the Mercury-Neptune conjunction. But Moon, Jupiter, conjunct in the 2nd house, the woman makes good money.
She can choose her roles.
Scorpio, 26%, over 1/4 of her power.
Interesting.
All right. The archer. The symbol, well, it's an arrow. Very good for an archer. Sagittarius literally is Latin for archer. Sagitta is an arrow. November 22nd to December 21st, their best quality is loyalty. Worst quality is sportative. That loyalty is standing by others thick and thin, or standing by the causes you believe in. Being sportative is having fun at the expense of others. They have other best and worst traits. Usually, honesty is considered the best trait of Sagittarius, and tactlessness the worst trait. So they wake up in the morning having taken truth serum. They think everybody wants to hear the truth.
Yes.
They go.
Over a lifetime, they will discover that. That actually, they were the ones that were interested in the truth. Nobody else was that interested in hearing it. But they can have a sense of humor about it, since Jupiter is their ruling planet. The color is the lighter shade of purple, since it's the day sign of the planet Jupiter. And garnet and turquoise are considered to be the gemstones of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is pictured as a centaur, half horse, half man. So the buttocks and thighs are the part of the body that rules. If you think about it, that is where our largest muscles are in the body. And these are the muscles of locomotion. This is where we are able to propel ourselves forward in the world. So, as Lee Riffle once said to me, Sagittarians belong to a mutual admiration society. They really like one another.
That's my sister.
Wow, the phone works.
It's not supposed to be ringing.
All right. They are adventurous, alert, articulate. Oh, pull the plug out of the back.
It's not supposed to be.
Sorry about
Oh, probably the power outage reset.
that. Reset, yeah.
Oh boy, that's going to be something to.
Is the reprogram will happen?
All right, what did I say? Adventurous, alert,
Articulate.
articulate, astute, attentive, candid, casual, charitable, chatty, cheerful, communicative, curious, devout, direct, eloquent, encouraging, enthusiastic, ethical, exploratory, frank, funny, generous, honest, humorous, inclusive, independent, informal, informative, inquisitive, insightful, inspirational, intelligent, jovial, knowledgeable, laid back, liberal, lofty, loyal, lucid, observant, optimistic, perceptive, philosophical, playful, scholarly, sincere, spiritual, spontaneous, straightforward, talkative, tolerant, truthful, uncomplicated, upbeat, verbal, and witty. Except when they are affected, aloof, arrogant, blunt, boisterous, careless, caustic, callous, condescending, disruptive, evangelizing, excessive, fanatical, flamboyant, flashy, fault-finding, garrulous, happy-go-lucky. That should be on the other list. Harsh, inconsiderate, immature, imperious, impractical, insensitive, know-it-all, lackadaisical, lacks discretion, laissez-faire, long-winded, loquacious, ostentatious, piercing, pious, pompous, practical joker, pranksters, pretentious, proselytizing, man, they sound nasty, rambling, remote, restless, rowdy, rude, sarcastic, sermonizing, snobbish, squandering, standoffish, tactless, thoughtless, unkind, unrealistic, unruly, unstructured, verbose, wasteful, wild, wordy, and zealous.
Aren't you one of these?
I am
So is that why your list of negatives is getting so long here?
loquacious, long-winded. Many years of self-reflection.
Albert Benjamin,
Yeah. The general impression is that material science is infallible, when the truth is that it is undergoing a constant process of revision, each decade trying to correct the mistakes of the previous decade. I love that.
Yeah, that's a good saying.
So, Albert Benjamin, Sag rising, Venus in Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius, Mars in Sagittarius, Sun in Sagittarius. Talk about long-winded. Some of his sentences take up an entire paragraph.
all in the first house with an empty ninth house. What accounts for his philosophic?
Sagittarius?
Sagittarius?
Oh, okay. That'll do it.
Opposite Jupiter in the 7th or 8th house, well, 7th house.
Look at
Okay,
that.
36.9% of its power. I'd say that probably makes for the wandering philosopher. This man lived in Iowa, California, Utah, I think Montana, Louisiana.
He started writing these books of like channeled wisdom, it seems like, at a really young age too, right?
Well, he was born in 1882, and he started writing at age 30, I believe, in 1912 is when he started writing.
Oh, but at 19 he recognized his calling?
Yes.
He was charged?
Yes, at age 18, he was studying, you're getting very sleepy. What is that?
Mesmerism?
Yeah, mesmerism, hypnotism,
Uh-huh.
and then went on to study astrology with the goal of debunking it. And ended up
He debunked mesmerism. He debunked abdicating your sovereignty and going into a trance.
Mhm. Right, and then he was going on to debunk astrology.
But he
but-
got won over, huh?
Yeah, he did.
Well, with Uranus on his midheaven that rules astrology, how could he not? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
This one made sense to him. So, but also the Sagittarius, he was an outdoorsman. And he was founder of one of the conservation societies in Los Angeles, which founded a bird sanctuary in the region. So that was his dual life. If you think of Sagittarians as being dual animals and having dual careers. On one hand, he was completely immersed in astrology and the occult. On the other hand, he was very well known for being a naturalist and involved in the conservation movement. Capricorn, we're moving down. The sea goat, the symbol, some say, is the symbol of the horns and the tail of the goat. Zane says it's the circuitous path that the goat wanders as it reaches its heights. This is December 22nd to January 19th, is when the sun is in that sign. Their best quality is diplomacy, and their worst quality is deceit. I always like to say, look at Richard Nixon, the consonant Capricorn. Opened up trade with China, the most populous nation in the world back in the 70s, and was also caught up in the Watergate scandal. Ruling planet is Saturn, color is dark blue, onyx, sardonyx. You know, Capricorn and Scorpio get bad raps among the zodiac, but as you can see from our lengthy laundry list, there's really no one sign that is better than or worse than another. They just have different positive traits and different negative traits. Part of the body is the knees. If you don't have knees, you can't climb. If you don't have knees, you can't kneel. So Capricorn is ever climbing to the top, but the knees are the means by which they kneel or genuflect to the powers that be as they prepare themselves for their ascension. And there are a lot of qualities here associated with Capricorn, the first of which is ambitious. They are accomplished, accountable, capable, careful, cautious, circumspect, common sense, competent, conforming, conservative. Oh, there, it's on the positive list. Conventional, dependable, determined, diplomatic, discreet, dutiful, economical, efficient, exacting, foresightful, functional, frugal, goal-oriented, habitual, judicious, logical, matter-of-fact, methodical, meticulous, no frills, no nonsense, orderly, organized, practical. Am I saying the same things over and over again? It sure feels like it. Practical, predictable, prepared, prodigious, proficient, protective, prudent, purposeful, reliable, resolute, responsible, safety-minded, shrewd, sensible, steadfast, structured, systematic, thrifty, traditional, utilitarian, vigilant, watchful, wary. All traits to make Vicky yawn.
So sorry.
That's okay. It was lulling me to sleep too, but they're actually really fabulous people. Now on the offside, they can be acquisitive, apprehensive, anxious, aesthetic, austere, avaricious, burdened, calculating, cheap, cold, covetous, discouraging, dispiriting, dry, dreary, dull, fearful. Nobody's yawning now. Formal, frightened, gloomy, glum, grasping, grave, greedy, grim, habitual, impoverished, inflexible, lackluster, limiting, materialistic, monotonous, overburdened, plotting, reserved, restraining, rigid, routine, scheming, self-centered, selfish, serious, severe, sober, solemn, Spartan, standoffish, stern, stoic, strict, tedious, timid, troubled, unbending, uncompromising, unyielding, and worried. I'm worn out.
I've never known a Capricorn who couldn't invent the tool for the job.
As I always say, if they don't have a cookie cutter to make biscuits, they'll get out a wine glass. If they don't have a screwdriver to tighten up the door lock, they'll pull out a butter knife.
Yeah.
So they are improvising. Everything to Capricorn is a tool.
Well, everything's useful.
Everything is useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll also have balls of string and rubber bands and a few 6-foot piles of newspaper, which may be useful someday for wallpapering your shanty during the Depression,
They can
or
also,
shredding for insulation.
yeah, they can also drop people like they were no longer useful objects in their lives.
Pick them up and put them down. Who remembers Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop?
Oh, yeah.
All right. These are all really dated characters for you, Reuben, but most of us grew up knowing you. Okay. You might know Lamb Chop, but not Sherry Lewis. All right. Interesting. Self-esteem comes from doing something and accomplishing something. That's a Capricorn for you. Venus, Mercury, Sun in Capricorn. Again, 4th house seems to be a factor here. It's a angular house. It holds the energy in the chart. Then look at this Libra ascendant and moon. She wasn't the typical Capricorn. There was a very friendly, inviting quality about her for kids. And anybody could make lamb chop talk. So 19.6 is the percent of her power. If we go backwards, we can see Cancer is next in strength, which is her midheaven and Pluto at the top of her chart. And she moved up in syndicated shows, Pluto in the 10th house. All right, 2 more signs to go and we're out of here. Aquarius means water bearer. The symbol, 2 waves. Keyword I know. January 18th to February 19th. This is the man of the zodiac, and their best quality is being humanitarian or altruistic, and their worst quality is being argumentative. The ruling planet is both Uranus and Saturn. Uranus is radical, Saturn is conservative. I detect an internal conflict. Color is light blue. Gemstone is the sapphire. The part of the body is the calves, shins, and ankles. So, positive Aquarius traits are advanced. They are adventurous, altruistic, avant-garde, brilliant, broad-minded, chatty, communicative, community-minded, creative. They are discoverers, enlightened, exceptional, experimental, exploring, free-spirited, free-thinking, forward-thinking, futuristic, groundbreaking, humanitarian, independent, individualistic, ingenious, innovative, inspired, insightful, inventive. They're in the in crowd here. Liberal, open-minded, original, outgoing, progressive, reforming, self-sufficient, social, stimulating, talkative, tolerant, trendy, unique. Well, and here are their negative traits. Abnormal, abrupt, alienating, argumentative, authority, oppositional, belligerent, challenging, changeable, confrontational, contentious, contrary, controversial, dissenting, disorderly, disruptive, divisive. They're doing a lot of dissing here too. Eccentric, erratic, extremist, hasty, inconsistent, idiosyncratic, informal, irregular. I guess you can get a remedy for that. Insurrectionary, maverick, nonconformist, oddball, peculiar, provocative, quirky, radical, rebellious, revolutionary, stubborn, strange, sudden, unconstrained, unconventional, unexpected, unorthodox, unpredictable, unreliable, unruly, unstable, unusual, and downright weird. So, here's my favorite Aquarius quote here. Enraging liberals is simply one of the more enjoyable side effects of my wisdom.
That's interesting.
You didn't put otherworldly in there, traits.
Is he looking otherworldly in that
Not
picture?
so much him, but Aquariuses can seem like they're visiting the humankind and planet Earth. They'll
I call them
describe
futurists.
themselves that way, as feeling alien or not really fitting in.
Well, I put down weird, unusual.
You can add to the list.
Yeah, just keep adding to your vocabulary. Because certain words become your vocabulary. They may not be ones I would choose, but
Right.
they become your descriptors in this process. So, 21.7% of his energy. Well, what does he do? Well, he enrages liberals.
Right.
All right, last sign is Pisces. The twin fish, the symbol you can see here are two crescents tied together. These fish are constrained to one another with a ribbon. And the key word is I believe. The dates are February 19th to March 20th. Their best quality is sympathy. Have you ever gone to the aquarium and watched a school of fish swim? They are in sync with one another, more so than water ballet, synchronized swimming. They are in sympathy with one another. Their worst quality is worry, especially when the sharks start coming around. Ruling planets are Neptune and Jupiter. The color is dark purple and the gemstone is the peridot. Also shells are considered to be ruled by Pisces. Part of the body, the feet. So we've gone from the head Aries to the feet. And positive Pisces traits, they are affectionate, caring, charitable, compassionate, concerned, considerate, devout, dramatic, dreamy, emotional, empathetic, generous, gentle, idealistic, imaginative, inclusive, inquisitive, insightful, inspirational, intuitive, kind-hearted, lofty, mild-mannered, philosophical, prophetic, quixotic, receptive, romantic, self-sacrificing, sensitive, sincere, spiritual, sympathetic, tender, theatrical, and visionary. Now on the negative side of the aisle, they can be addictive, anxious, apprehensive, dependent, depressive, easily influenced, fluctuating, frail, fretful, gossipy, helpless, hypersensitive, hysterical, impractical, impressionable, indecisive, martyrs, maudlin, moody, morose, overly emotional, mushy, needy, nervous, passive-aggressive, self-destructive, submissive, susceptible, syrupy, temperamental, thin-skinned, uneasy, unstable, vacillating, victims, vulnerable, wavering, weak, weepy, whiny, wearisome, wounded. It's hard to be a Pisces. Irma Bombeck. It is not until you become a mother that your judgment slowly turns to compassion and understanding. Spoken like a Pisces. All right, Sun in Pisces, Jupiter in Pisces, Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Pisces, Uranus in Pisces. Let's look at the totals. Whoops, come back, Irma. 29.1% of her power is in Pisces.
Look how harmonious it is, too.
Yeah, she was a humorist, but also so compassionate to the needs of families that she could take these very serious situations. And look, Sun conjunct Jupiter in the first house. She could make any serious situation and put a amusing spin on it. Now, I have to do this very briefly because of time, but what really convinced me of the tropical zodiac is the zones of the body ruled by the signs and their relative harmony and discord. This is all in your notes, so you can take it home and study it. But Zane really got into Astrodynes when he was writing Stellar Diagnosis, Stellar Healing. And it became clear to him that these discordant zones in our thinking or in our soul end up over time manifesting in our body. And that by knowing how to really measure where the harmony and discord is, one could then take preventative measures and look towards reinforcing certain areas of the body that otherwise would eventually become subject to disease. So we don't have time to go into this tonight. I say take this information home, read this quote in the privacy of your own home, and look at your chart for these zones so you know where to be proactive in terms of your health. Next week we're looking at aspects in the chart, looking at them both from power and from harmony and discord. And then we've got a couple of other classes ahead that'll be really interesting. So see you all in a week. And for those of you online, thank you for participating with us tonight. We're glad that our technical difficulties cleared up so you could all be here.